Hi and welcome to today's Mishna Brura. We're on chapter 90, number 23 through to 27, the end of chapter 90. Habagadim hametsuyarim, clothes that are embroidered, decorated, that have patterns on them. Maybe a good word is illustrated. Clothes. Afal pisha einam boltot, even though they don't stand out. In other words, maybe they're printed instead of there being something actually protruding. It is not correct to pray opposite to them. And if it so happens that he would pray opposite clothing, so here this really means a wall hanging, clothing or a wall, mitzuyar, that is illustrated, ya'alim einav, he should close his eyes. The Ramo says, Valachain, therefore, Asur gamkein letzayir tzurim besfarim shemitpalelim behem. It is forbidden also to illustrate illustrations in the books that we pray with them. In other words, in the Siddur. Shelo titbatel hakavana, in order not to negate, make idle, the intention. That we wouldn't spend all our time now looking at the beautiful pictures instead of actually focusing on prayer. So therefore you must not pray with a siddur with pictures in. But clothing or hangings that there's illustrated on them words of prayer, even to sit on them in the shul is forbidden. So obviously they had some kind of cushions that were embroidered with psukim, and he says that's no good. Number 24, lo yitpalel b'tzad rabo, should not pray to the side of his rabbi, of his teacher, velo achorei rabo, and not behind him, velo lefanav, and not in front of him. Okay, give your rabbi some free space. The Ramo says, v'yeshomim dekol ze lo ma'iri. Some say that all of this, lo ma'iri ella, is not speaking except, in other words, is only speaking, litpalel b'yachid, to pray privately. If the two of you are praying privately, you haven't got a minyan, just everyone's praying, so don't go right up in front of him, to the side, behind him. Aval betzibur, in a community, imkahu seder yeshivato, if that is the order of the sitting, if this is just where your place is and where his place is, ein lachush im yitpalel lefanav v'lacharav, do not worry if you pray in front of him or behind him. But next to him it seems is still problematic. Va'af al pi shetov lehachmir, even though it is good to go strict, haminag lahakel, the custom is to be lenient. Im hirchik arba amot mutar, and if you distanced yourself arba amot, about 2 meters, mutar, then it is permissible. He gives a reference, take a look in your day. Number 25, talmid chaver, a student colleague. So somebody's not exactly a student, but he's not exactly, right? It's in between. Mutar litpalel acharei rabo, is permitted to daven behind his teacher. Number 26, kol makom she'en korin bo kriyat shema, ein mitpalelim bo. Any place that they don't say the Shema, you cannot pray in it. Whatever restrictions there are in place, as we discussed in previous chapters, for Shema there would be those same restrictions on prayer. And just as we distance ourselves from dung and from urine and from a bad smell, or from the deceased, and from seeing nakedness, so too we distance ourselves for davening. Number 27, haya omeid betfilah, if you were standing in prayer, in other words, in the middle of the Amidah, v'hishtin tinok, and a child urinated b'veit HaKnesset in the shul, yishtok, he should be silent. So he's in the middle of Amidah, now he can't daven because he's in the presence of urine, so he should be silent. Ad sheyavu v'sheyaviu mayim, until they will bring water, la'atil ala meiraglayim, to place over the urine, and as we mentioned earlier, that negates the problem of it being urine. Or yahalech lefanav arba amot, or latztadav, or you should walk in front of him 4 amot, or to the side. So even though he's in the middle of the Amidah, walk out of the zone, or yetza mebeit hakneset v'yigmor tfilato, go out of the shul and finish his prayer there. The Ramo says, v'yoter tov, it is better leilech lemakom acher v'lo lishtok, to go somewhere else and not to be silent. Sheme yishe kedei ligmor et kulo, perhaps he will wait long enough to finish the whole Amidah, and you'll need to go back to the beginning. So it's better if he can just move somewhere else and continue davening straight away, rather than actually wait for something else to happen, because that could actually bring him to a situation where he has not fulfilled his obligation of the Amidah. All right, Mishna Brura, number 23. It is not correct. So he's speaking here again about to daven in front of these wall hangings. So he says, in order that he will not be looking at the illustrations, and he won't focus on his prayer. But because of, in other words, this aspect that we spoke about of chatzitza, of a break, of an interposition, of something blocking you from the wall, that you should try to get nothing blocking you from the wall, late bebegadim, there is not when it comes to clothes or wall hangings. Therefore, if they are not illustrated, or tluyim ala kotel, and they're hanging on the wall, it is permissible to pray opposite them. Now he says similarly, illustrations in the books, tziurim bisfarim, so too you should be careful from this reason, to not draw on the wall of the shul illustrations near the face of a person, rather above the height, the statue of a person. If you want to have drawings and decorations in the shul, it shouldn't be at head height. It is forbidden to pray opposite the mirror, or opposite a mirror. The mechazi, it looks like he is bowing down to his reflection. Guys praying right opposite a mirror, it looks like he's bowing down to his reflection every time that he bows. V'hainun, that says, af be'inayim stumot, even with eyes that are closed. Because when it's open, even without this factor of bowing down, it's forbidden, mishum bitul kavana, because of negation of your intention that you're going to be seeing all this action taking place in the mirror of yourself davening. And that is from the later halachic authorities. Afilu leishev aleim, even sitting on clothing with psukim is problematic. Shenemar, as it says, velo tavi to'eva el beitecha, do not bring an abomination into your home, va'afilu babeito asur, and so even in his own home is problematic. So I didn't actually understand what was going on. I misread the word. This is not tfilot, words of prayer. It's tiflut, nonsense, clothing that has on them nonsense. Then you can't even sit on them. So we're talking here about where it has bad, immoral kinds of writings. Okay, exactly what those would be, that you shouldn't even have in your home, and therefore you don't sit on it in the shul and don't sit on it at home. That's what we're talking about. Words of prayer on the cushions, that they never did, but that presumably would be forbidden to sit on either way. Now, coming back to the teacher, you're not allowed to sit to daven right around your teacher. Kihu yuhara, that is arrogance. Shemar eshu shave l'rabo, it shows that he is equal to his teacher. V'rabo hainu shirov chachma imenu. So yeah, I'm sitting around davening right next to my rabbi like he's my colleague. That's not correct. And when it says his rabbi, what does that mean? I mean, you learn from many people. Shirov chachmato himenu. The majority of his wisdom is from him. In other words, your primary rabbi. That's who we're speaking about here. Or gadol hador, or the greatest person of the generation. Adam says, it seems to me that it would be the same law for a person's own father. Neither behind his father. That also looks like arrogance. And some say, that it looks like he is bowing down to his rabbi in his davening. Some say, some say because he causes pain to his rabbi. Perhaps he will need to step 3 steps behind him, The rabbi needs to walk backwards, and you're still davening there, so you can't walk into your zone. And he will need to wait for you. Now, to do that for a normal person, okay, that sometimes, it's just squishy or inconsiderate, but to do it with your rabbi is more problematic. You shouldn't daven in front of your rabbi either. But how much more so? Certainly, that is a disgrace to his teacher. That he stands there with his back towards his teacher. But you don't need to worry if this is at a minyan. Because there everyone knows this is the rabbi's place, this is the student's place. It's not that you've gone and plonked yourself nearby him. There is not in it mishum yuhara, arrogance, or bowing down to him, because this is just your place. Nevertheless, it's good to be strict. This means to worry for the third reason that is mentioned above. In other words, of making him wait for you. Because it looks like you are causing pain to your rabbi. According to this, you should go strict also in a community about standing behind him. The custom, even though it's good to be strict, the custom is to be lenient. Take a look in the Be'er Halacha. Nevertheless, it is good in the first instance when he sets a place, fixes a place behind his rabbi, that he should distance himself a measure of 4 amot, about 2 meters, and 3 steps. In order that he doesn't pain his rabbi. So when the rabbi does take his 3 steps back, he is still 4 amot away from you, so you still have that space. Arba amot mutar, but if you're 2 meters away, then it's fine. The reshut acheriti, that is a different domain. The ayin b'fri magadim shekadu b'shem b'pri chadash. Take a look at the Pri Magadim, right in the name of the Pri Chadash. Delafanav sagi ba'arba amot metzumtzamot. In front of him, in front of him, it is sagi, sufficient, Aramaic word here. For 4 amot metzumtzamot, precisely. Aval lachorei rabo, but behind his rabbi, be'inen arba amot vashvash psiot. We require 4 amot and 3 steps. In order that his rabbi will be able to take 3 steps behind him, and he will not need to wait for him. And within his 4 amot, is it not so? Right? Is it not so that it is forbidden to take the steps into his 4 amot? As you'll see later on. Furthermore, you wrote, Al-Mera mutar afilu b'samuch. Okay, within this thing, it's permissible even close by to reshuta acharitahu, because that is a different domain. And then it says that is the bima. In other words, that one of them is on the bima and the other one's not. Then it's fine even b'samuch, even close by to reshuta acharitahu, because that is a different domain. Okay, v'ayim b'Yeridaya. Take a look in Yeridaya. Ritzelemar. What does he mean by this reference? The Shamnit Bayer, there it is explained, the Rechok Arba Amot Mo'il, the distance of 4 Amot helps, Afilu Im Rabol Acharav, even if the teacher is behind him. V'chein kat v'achronim, and that's what the Achronim writes as well, they agreed upon. Okay, behind Acharei Rabol, behind his rabbi, V'adin, but Sad Rabol. And so too at the side of the rabbi, so this is the Talmid Chaver, the student colleague, so you can pray behind the rabbi and you can pray on the side of the rabbi. Aval lifnei rabo asur, but in front of his rabbi it is still forbidden because you still are bugging him. Marchikin le tfilah, you distance yourself when it comes to davening from the things like the urine and whatever else in the same way that you do for the Shema. V'adin la Talmud Torah, same law when it comes to study of Torah, v'chol divrei kedusha, and all matters of holiness. But tefillah, in prayer, you stand in the middle of your davening, and this child urinates, and then what do? V'adin, same law, but kriyat shema u'shar divrei kedusha, in saying the Shema and other matters, other words of kedusha. U'komoshe katavnu lamala, as we wrote above, v'nakat, he mentioned, tefillah, davening, l'revuta, for, it's Aramaic, for extra learning, a chiddush, something new, for a new point, even with davening. This also he needs to walk in front of him 4 amot. Velo amrinan, we do not say, Kevan, since shu omed kfar betfila, he's standing already in davening, ein tzarich laharchik, he does not need to move. We don't say that. Yishtok, so what you should do is wait until somebody brings the bucket of water. All of this is not considered an interruption. But it is forbidden to stop with words to go and bring the water. In other words, to interrupt with words to go bring the water. Since the prohibition of urine is only rabbinic. According to the Torah, you can actually daven in the presence of urine, so therefore you can't stop your Amidah and start talking to people to bring the water in order to stop it. There are those who say also, that you do not need to distance yourself in this scenario at all. Therefore, even if somebody else also is standing in those arba amot, those 2 meters, of that urine and davening, you don't need to verbally interrupt them, to inform them. In other words, they don't know that they're davening in the presence of urine. The person hasn't even realized. So you don't need to stop them to tell them, because actually, according to the Torah, it would be fine. But if this child would dirty with excrement in the shul in the middle of davening, and other people are standing there and davening, and they don't know about this, if it's impossible in any other way, to tell them except through speech, the only way to tell them is by speaking to them, you are allowed to interrupt with speech, to save them, isur da'oraita, from a Torah prohibition. It is better that he should make a light prohibition, which is the rabbinic prohibition of interrupting prayer, rather than others should do a Torah prohibition. To pray in a filthy place. I've already explained earlier, chapter 79 in the Mishna Brura, the aspects, the cases that are doraita, that are from the Torah, and when it would be from the rabbis. And dafke, if he does not have something to cover it. But if he has something to cover it, whether we're speaking about excrement or urine, you're not allowed to stop, or even to move from his place. If the bad smell does not reach him. So if there's a way for him to physically cover it up and he's not going to have the bad smell, then he doesn't have to move and everything, that's what he should do. And it is better to leave than to sit and wait for somebody to bring the water, because then your time for davening might, so to speak, expire. Katav Chaya Adam, the Chaya Adam wrote, Im mitjarei, if he is afraid, Shema yishe kadei ligmar et kulo, perhaps he will wait enough time to finish all of it. V'yefshar lo laharchik arba amot, and it's impossible for him to move away for amot. Kogon, for example, sheyefshar lo lavor neged hamipalel. You can't walk opposite somebody who's davening. So the way to a new zone would interrupt the whole community. So you can't move, and you're worried that the amount of time it's going to take is actually going to negate the davening that you've done already. Yismoch ala rashba. He should rely on the rashba, the sphirale, who holds the mutar litpalel, that it is forbidden to pray in such a case. Since he's already standing in davening, and the prohibition of davening in the presence of urine is rabbinic, as we said. And he would need to go back and repeat his davening. Take a look earlier, chapter 78, Mishna Brura number 5. Then in the blessings of Shema, in these damen kain, if this occurs, and so too in all brachot, he does not need to go back to the beginning if he ended up waiting a long time in the middle of his davening. And that's it for today.